Baking bread isn't an everyday thing, but every once in a while, when I have a little extra time, it's just a really pleasurable thing to do. And my favorite is honey white bread. There are a few stages. Step one is the yeast. So I've got a half a cup of water, and the key to the yeast proofing, which is to reactivate the dry yeast, is to make sure the water is really hot. And you want to make sure it's 110 to 120 degrees, not in the cup, but in the bowl. So if the bowl's cold, you want it to be a little hotter. Next, 2 packages of dry yeast. And what the water does is reactivate it. And then a teaspoon of sugar, and what that does is feed the yeast so it starts to grow. And I find the best way to mix this is just with my hand, just to make sure that the yeast is reactivated and it's all mixed together and dissolved. I love the smell of fresh yeast. So I'm just going to stir this for a few minutes until the bubbles come up and you see a little bit of a foam, and that's how you know the yeast is alive. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask my friend Amy Scherber, who's the founder and owner of Amy's Breads in New York. She makes the most incredible breads. I'm going to ask her about yeast.
Hi, Ina. Welcome to the bakery. So science first. We start with dry yeast, tiny bit of sugar, and when we mix it with warm water, the yeast is activated and it starts to give off carbon dioxide. And that's what makes beautiful bubbles, and it makes the bread rise. It's absolutely fine to use dry yeast, and if you choose to use fresh, it has a milder flavor and activates at a lower temperature. And as for storing, dry yeast can be stored at room temperature, but fresh yeast has to be stored in the refrigerator. Or, better yet, you can keep both in the freezer for longer potency.
Thanks, Amy. Okay, the yeast is all bubbly and it's perfect, and the next step is all about the dough. Here goes. So I'm adding 1½ cups of warm whole milk to the yeast mixture. You want it to be 110 degrees. Then 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter that's been melted and cooled. 1½ tablespoons of honey, well, it is honey white bread. And then mix everything in the blender at medium speed. Then next, add 2 extra large egg yolks, 3 cups of all-purpose flour, and 1 tablespoon of kosher salt. That just mixes on low speed for about 5 minutes. Then add 2 more cups of flour and increase the speed to medium. And then from then on, I'm adding just enough flour so the dough doesn't stick to the bottom of the bowl. Take it really slowly. You can always add more flour, but you can't take it out. And just when you wonder what that hook attachment for your mixer was, it's a dough hook, and you use it for kneading. So this gets kneaded for 8 minutes, and then it's over to Amy for everything we need to know about kneading.
Some kneading tips. When you hand knead, use a quick, confident motion that doesn't warm the dough too much. And use some strength, because that will help develop the gluten, and that's what kneading is all about. People ask if you can over-knead. Not by hand, I don't think, but in a mixer you can, so make sure you follow the time on the recipe. The dough is kneaded enough when it's smooth, supple, and strong, and it stretches like this.
Thanks so much, Amy. Okay, we're ready for stage 3 of my dough, which is hand kneading and rising. Just a little bit of flour on the board so it doesn't stick. Squishy. I love the feel of it. Pull it towards you and then push it away. Then pull it towards you and push it away. A little roughness is always good here. You can take out your aggressions. And then you'll see it's really stretchy, which is exactly what you want. Okay. And it should feel like a baby's bottom. That's what all bakers say. And what I've done is I've greased the bottom of the bowl just with a little room temperature butter, because I want a little coating of butter on the outside of the dough, keep it from getting hard. So I'm going to roll it around in this bowl and then turn it over. And I'm just going to let it rise on the counter, covered with a little damp cloth, until it's double in size. It'll be about an hour. And now back to Amy for everything we need to know about rising dough, and she knows a lot.
Okay, Ina, science first. The rising is when the yeast does its thing and converts the sugars in the dough into alcohol and carbon dioxide, and that makes the dough rise. Here in the bakery, we raise the dough in the oven room, but at home, anywhere warm, on top of a refrigerator or near a radiator are good places. And the big question is, how do you know when the dough is risen enough? The answer is when it's doubled in size. It starts like this and it ends like this. And when you poke your finger into it, it leaves an indentation and it doesn't spring back. So those are my tips. I wish you good baking. Now back to you, Ina.
Thanks, Amy. It's no wonder her breads are absolutely fantastic and her book is amazing. So let's see if the dough is risen. Look how gorgeous that is. Isn't that nice? It's double in volume. I'm just going to dump it out on the board. And this is the time to start making loaves. So this will make 2 breads. I'm just going to cut it right in half. Look how soft and squishy this is. Don't worry, it's going to deflate a little bit. I always make 2 loaves. As long as you've gone through this process, you might as well make 2 loaves of bread. So I'm just going to form them a little bit, roll them up into an oval shape. And I've got 2 pans, regular loaf pans, that I've buttered. I want to make sure the breads come out of the loaf pans. I'm just going to cover these again with a damp cloth. They're going to double in volume. It takes about an hour, and then brush it with egg white into the oven, 350 degrees for 40 minutes, and the house is going to smell fantastic. So that was a couple of stages, but none of them are really that hard. And the final stage is the best one. A little bit of butter. And I would say this is worth waiting for.